Hey, Squirrel Squad. Back with Little Men. It's about almost 4:30, so I may not get the whole rest of this chapter. And I may be repeating a little bit, just to refresh. They were doing the new play, as they called it. They made Daisy the little play kitchen. I really don't know how to measure for such tiny pies. I must guess at it. And if these don't succeed, we must try again, said Mrs. Joe, looking rather perplexed and very much amused with the small concern before her. Take that little pan full of flour, put in a pinch of salt, and then rub in as much butter as will go on the plate. Always remember to put your dry things together first and then the wet. It mixes better so. I know how. I saw Asia do it. Remember, her Daisy's play name is Sally, and Asia's the cook. Don't I butter the pie plates too? She did, the first thing, said Daisy, whisking the flour about at a great rate. Quite right. I do believe you have a gift for cooking. You take it so cleverly, said Aunt Jo approvingly. Now a dash of cold water, just enough to wet it, then scatter some flour on the board, work in a little, and roll the paste out. Yep, that's the way. Now put dabs of butter all over it and roll it out again. We won't have our pastry very rich, or the dolls will get dyspeptic. Daisy laughed at the idea and rolled the dabs with a liberal hand. Then she rolled and rolled with her delightful little pen, and having got her paste ready, proceeded to cover the plates with it. Next, the apple was sliced in it, sugar and cinnamon lavishly sprinkled over it, and then the top crust put on with breathless care. I always wanted to cut them round, and Asia would never would let me. How nice it is to do it all my onty-donty self, said Daisy as a little knife went clipping around the doll's plate poised on her hand. All cooks, even the best, meet with mishaps sometimes, and Sally's first one occurred then, for the knife went so fast that the plate slipped, turned a somersault in the air, and landed the dear little pie upside down on the floor. Sally screamed. Really, Daisy. Mrs. Joe laughed. Teddy scrambled to get it, and for a moment confusion reigned in the new kitchen. It didn't spill or break because I pinched the edges together so hard. It isn't hurt a bit. So I'll prick holes in it and it'll be ready, said Sally, picking up the capsized treasure and putting it into shape with childlike disregard of the dust it had gathered in its fall. My new cook has a good temper, I see, and that is such a comfort, said Mrs. Joe. Now open the jar of jelly jam, fill the uncovered pie, and put some strips of paste over the top as Asia does. I'll make a D in the middle and have zigzags all around it. That will be so interesting when I come to eat it, said Sally, loading the plate with curls and flourishes that would have driven a real pastry cook wild. Now I put them in, she exclaimed, when the last grimy knob had been carefully planted in the red field of jam, and with an air of triumph she shut them into the little oven. Clear up your things. A good cook never lets her utensils collect. Then pare your squash and potatoes. There's only one potato, giggled Sally. We'll cut it in 4 pieces so it will go into the kettle, and put the bits into cold water till it's time to cook them. Do I soak the squash too? No, indeed. Just pare it up and cut it up and put it in the steamer over the pot. It is drier so, though it takes longer to cook. A scratching at the door caused Sally to run and open it, when Kit appeared with covered basket in his mouth. Here's the butcher boy, cried Daisy, much tickled at the idea, as she relieved him of his load, whereat he licked his lips and began to beg, evidently thinking that it was for his own dinner. for he often carried it to his master in that way. Being undeceived, he parted in great wrath and barked all the way downstairs to ease his wounded feelings. They should have given him a little something. In the basket were 2 bits of steak, dollars, pounds, a baked pear, a small cake, and paper with them on which Asia had scrawled, "For Missy's lunch if her cooking don't turn out well. I don't want any of her old pears and things. My cooking will turn out well, and I'll have a splendid dinner. See if I don't," cried Daisy indignantly. "We may like them if company should come. It's always well to have something in the storeroom," said Aunt Jo, who had been taught this valuable fact by a series of domestic panics. "Me is hungry," announced Teddy, who began to think with so much cooking going on it was about time for somebody to eat something. His mother gave him her work basket to rummage, hoping to keep him quiet till dinner was ready, and returned to her housekeeping. "Put on your vegetables, set the table, then have some coals kindling ready for the steak." What a thing it was to see the potatoes bobbing about in the little pot, to peep at the squash getting soft so fast in the tiny steamer, to whisk open the oven door every 5 minutes to see how the pies got on, and at last, when the coals were red and glowing, to put 2 real steaks on a finger-long gridiron and proudly turn them with a fork. The potatoes were done first, and no wonder, for they had boiled frantically all the while. They were pounded up with a little pestle and had much butter and no salt put in. Cook forgot it in the excitement of the moment. Then it was made into a mound in a gay red dish, smoothed over with a knife, dipped in milk, and put in the oven to brown. So absorbed in these last performances had Sally been, that she forgot her pastry till she opened the door to put in the potato, and then a wail arose, for alas, alas, the little pies were burnt black. "Oh, my pies, my darling pies, they are all spoilt," cried Sally, wringing her dirty little hands as she surveyed the ruin of her work. The tart was especially pathetic, for the curls and zigzags stuck up in all directions from the blackened jelly like the walls and chimney of a house after a fire. "Dear, dear, I forgot to remind you to take them out. It's just my luck," said Aunt Jo remorsefully. "Don't cry, darling. It was all my fault. We'll try again after dinner," she added, as a great tear dropped from Sally's eyes and sizzled on the hot ruins of the tart. More would have followed if the steak had not blazed up just then and so occupied the attention of the cook that she quickly forgot the lost pastry. "Put the meat dish and your own plates down to warm while you mash the squash with butter, salt, and a little pepper on top," said Miss Jo, devoutly hoping that the dinner would meet with no further disasters. The cunning pepper pot soothed Sally's feelings, and she dished up her squash in fine style. The dinner was safely put upon the table. The 6 dolls were seated, 3 on a side. Teddy took the bottom and Sally the top. When all were settled, it was a most imposing spectacle, for one doll was in full ball costume, another in her nightgown. Jerry, the worsted boy, wore his red winter suit, while Annabella, the noseless darling, was airily attired in nothing but her own kid skin. Teddy, as father of the family, behaved with great propriety, for he smilingly devoured everything offered him and did not find a single fault. Daisy beamed upon her company like the weary, warm, but hospitable hostess so often to be seen at larger tables than this, and did the honors with an air of innocent satisfaction, which we do not often see elsewhere. The steak was so tough that the little carving knife would not cut it. The potato did not go round, and the squash was not lumpy, was very lumpy, excuse me. But the guest appeared polite, unconscious of these trifles, and the master and mistress of the house cleared the table with appetites that anybody might envy them. The joy of skimming a jug full of cream mitigated the anguish felt for the loss of the pies. Asia's despised cake proved a treasure in the way of dessert. That's the nicest lunch I ever had. Can I do it every day? Asked Daisy as she scraped up and ate the leavings all around. You can cook things every day after lessons, but I prefer that you should eat your dishes at regular meals and only have a bit of gingerbread for lunch. Today being the first time, I don't mind, but we must keep our rules. This afternoon you can make something for tea if you like, said Mrs. Joe, who had enjoyed the dinner party very much, though no one had invited her to partake. I don't know why I did that. I've been doing the weirdest gestures. Makes no sense. Throat's dry. Like I whacked my chest for my dry mouth, and I did this the other day when I meant to do. No. Let's see. Do let me make flapjacks for Dimmy. He loves them so. And it's such fun to turn them and put sugar in between, cried Daisy, tenderly wiping a yellow stain off Annabelle's broken nose, for Bella had refused to eat squash when it was pressed upon her as good for rheumatism. A complaint which is no wonder she suffered from, considering the lightness of her attire. But if you give Dimmy goodness, all the others will expect some also, and then you'll have your hands full. Couldn't I have Dimmy come up to tea alone, just one time? And after that I could cook things for the others if they were good, proposed Daisy with a sudden inspiration. That is a capital idea, Posy. We'll make your little messes rewards, and messes, like food. Rewards for the good boys, and I don't know one among them who would not like something nice to eat more than almost anything else. If little men are like big ones, good cooking will touch their hearts and soothe their tempers delightfully, added Aunt Jo with a merry nod toward the door, where stood Papa Bear, surveying the scene with a face full of amusement. That last hit was for me, sharp woman. I accept it, for it is true, but if I had married thee for thy cooking, heart's dearest, I should have fared badly all these years, answered the professor, laughing as he tossed Teddy, who became quite apoplectic in his endeavors to describe the feast he had just enjoyed. Daisy proudly showed her kitchen and rashly promised Uncle Fritz as many flapjacks as he could eat. She was just telling about the new rewards when the boys, headed by Dimmy, burst into the room, snuffing the air like a pack of hungry hounds, for school was out, dinner was not ready, and the fragrance of Daisy's steak led them straight to the spot. A prouder little damsel was never seen than Sally as she displayed her treasures and told the lads what was in store for them. Several rather scoffed at the idea of her cooking anything fit to eat, but Stuffy's heart was won at once. Nat and Dimmy had firm faith in her skill, and the others said they would wait and see. All admired the kitchen, however, and examined the stove with deep interest. Dimmy offered to buy the boiler on the spot to be used in a steam engine which he was constructing, and Ned declared that the best and biggest saucepan was just the thing to melt his lead in when he ran bullets, hatchets, and such trifles. Daisy looked so alarmed at these proposals that Mrs. Joe then and there made and proclaimed a law that no boy should touch, use, or even approach the sacred stove without a special permit from the owner thereof. This increased its value immensely in the eyes of the gentleman, especially as any infringement of the law would be punished by forfeiture of all right to partake of the delicacies promised to the virtuous. At this point, the bell rang. You know what? There's still quite a bit to go, so I'm going to stop at the bell ringing. If I can find it, I went back down. At this point, the bell rang. Okay, right there, bookmark. Yay, got it on the first time that time. Yay, I'm getting better with the Kindle. Okay, guys, it's like, I don't know if this will even go up before live, but it's 15 minutes till live right this second. So, be sweet, don't be ugly, and see you later. Bye-bye.